Yeah, so today we are with Jim Weinman. He's a robot technician at AMS Galaxy USA, and he's going to show us the process of a cow being milked in the automatic milking system and excuse me, talk about his career as a robot technician. So let's get to it.
Yeah, sounds great. So as I was introduced, my name's Jim Wyman. I work for AMS Galaxy as a service technician, and I get to work with all of our equipment. And what we're standing next to today is one of our robotic milking pieces of equipment. And I graduated, so I went to Muhlenberg, graduated from Muhlenberg, and I used a VOTEC program, and that's what allowed me to get into a technician role here with Galaxy. I actually didn't grow up on a farm, so for me, it's mostly about the equipment. I do love the cows, especially working with them over the years. It's a lot of fun. But I took a drafting program in VOTEC, and that's really helped me out here because when we do installs and stuff like that, I have a lot of prints and drawings, electrical drawings and schematics that we look at. So that's really helped me out when I first started as a technician. Just having a good base knowledge of mechanics, if you like to work on cars, or if you like to do anything like that, if you like to work with your hands, it's a pretty good job to be a technician. And plus, we get to work with fun equipment like the robotic milking system, as you can see here.
Very cool. So if you don't mind taking a couple minutes here to explain to us what we're seeing and what's happening and how is that robot working right now?
Yes. So hopefully we'll get another cow that comes in here, but right now that cow just finished and the arm is coming back to the cleaning position. This is the cleaning position. So in between each cow, the robot will wash the inside of the inflations and the hoses in between each cow. So that's what the process is doing right now.
Okay.
And it
all right.
looks
Gotta
like
keep it clean.
Yep, that's right. Looks like there'll be a cow coming in right now. So each cow, if you guys, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but they'll have a collar, and that collar, there's they call it a transponder, and basically what that does is it's tied to every cow's number inside the computer system. So the collar will also monitor her activity. So if she's standing, if she's sleeping, if she's eating, and where she is in the barn. Now, what that does is when the cow comes in, just like she did, it's tied to her information inside the computer. So once that collar's read, what it'll do is it'll tell the computer, oh, I have cow 1608, and she's allowed to milk. And what'll happen in a second here, after the last cow's milk pumps into the tank, it'll start the milking process.
Wow. Now, she jumped in there, pretty quickly. Is there anybody out there like getting them in, or do they just come in on their own? Like, how does that happen? Are they trained to do this?
Yeah, so what our concept at Galaxy, what we do, and it's one of my favorite things, is we do a fully it's called voluntary milking. So there is technically nobody in the barn right now. And what we do in the beginning, when a cow's new to the robotic system, there's two things that happen. We bring her to the robot, and the second thing is she gets a treat as she's being milked. So after a couple times of and getting the treat, they actually will they'll come by themselves, and they'll come by themselves multiple times a day.
Wow. That's pretty cool. So they're smart. They know where the food's coming from, and they also know where their relief is coming from.
Right.
So they just walk themselves in. And so
Yep.
now, so she walked in, and so what was happening first? Was she being cleaned? Is
So
that correct?
Yep. So first, what you see is the first stage of the brushes. So that was just to clean any excess dirt. Now the brushes move back, and they have a little bit of a pre-dip, or a lot of guys use iodine. Here we use a chlorine dioxide, and that just helps sanitize the exterior of the teats before she's milked. So right now, we call this the prep process. So the brushes will go up, brush the teats, and then it'll spray a little bit of air. I don't know if you guys can hear it on your end, but there's a little bit of air that sprays to dry them. And then now this is going to start the attachment process. So it uses a laser and a camera to help find each teat.
Interesting. Wow. And that robot is just finding each one, and it puts it on, and it does one at a time.
It does one at a time. Yep. And as you can see there, it wasn't sure where to go. So it backs up, resets, and then it'll go back on. Now inside the
quick.
Yeah. Usually with the cow coming in and the prep process, from prepping to being attached, we should be about under 2 minutes, or right around 2 minutes. Yeah.
So now, how long will this be on her once
So
does it know when to stop?
yeah, it depends a little bit. So if we bring the camera up here I don't know if you guys can see this screen right here, but inside of the system, there's multiple sensors. So these lines right here are actually showing the flow. So there's a flow sensor, and it'll monitor her milk. And based on the settings that we have in here, as she milks, her flow will be steady. And when it starts to fall, that's when we start the process of removing each of the inflations.
Now you say we, but the robot's pretty much making that judgment call itself, right?
Yep,
and it's saying it's done and it's going to pull off.
Yep, that's all inside the robot software. So that determines it itself.
Interesting. So as a robot technician, is that something that you get to be part of programming that? Or like how does that play into, like, we're seeing it practically happen right now. So what did you do as a technician to help make that happen?
So for this inside of the software, once the software's set, my job as a technician, there is settings that we can adjust depending on her dynamic. Basically, we can double check to make sure the cows are getting milked out correctly, which you don't want to leave an excess of milk and you don't want to take too much. You want to leave kind of like the right amount of milk left, so that way she doesn't have any problems. So as a technician, my job is to double check to make sure the pulsation, so that's the squeezing of the liner, there's a rate, how many times it pulsates. We double check that, and we can adjust to make sure that the milking science basically behind all of this equipment is doing what it's supposed to. Make sure that there's the correct vacuum, make sure the correct pulsation rate, and then also to make sure that that flow sensor is actually calibrated to have the right values, so that way we take the units off when we need to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it kind of sounds like you are probably pulling a lot of reports and needing to analyze reports. Does that sound correct?
We can do a lot of that. And the great part about it is I'm able as a technician to see all of our customers throughout the United States. The same computer system. I can log in remotely anywhere from the world. So a lot of times if customers have questions, or if there's maybe as a trickier answer that I need a little bit more information, the computer system here holds all that information, and I'm able to remotely go in and see each cow, flow, milk production, eating, anything that happens to the cow. I can see remotely, and then what I can do is there's reports that I can generate and help the customer based on not physically being on the farm, which is really cool.
Wow, that is impressive. And and sometimes it's just kind of mind blowing to think about that we have technology that you can do that you can kind of jump into their robot computer, figure it out, analyze the data, and then work with your farmer and say, hey, we see X, Y, and Z happening. Here are possible solutions that you can try, right? And so you're working with them.
Yep, exactly.
Awesome.
Yep, because we work with a lot of information, so being able to pull that out, it really helps us.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think your favorite part of being a robot technician is? What's your favorite part of the day or favorite part of the job?
I probably say I have two. So one of my favorite things is I personally love traveling, and I love traveling the United States and getting to meet new farmers, especially in different areas. So you'll tend to see that different areas have different styles of farming depending on what they were brought up and how they were taught. So I love being able to travel and meet the customers and see their facilities and just be on farm and get to teach them and work, and especially their dealers. We have dealers too, so I get to do that with the dealers and the farmers at the same time. The second part of my job is I really like when somebody calls and they need a little bit of information or a little bit of help, and I can quickly just kind of teach them a little bit more in depth. And we have a lot of good customers that when you first start out, you don't really know much, and what you're focused on is, okay, let's just make sure the cows are getting milk and through. And as the customer kind of develops what they like and they get interested in like the science and, well, why is this doing this? And what does this do in the background? And that's, it's cool to teach them how to, troubleshoot and learn the system. And the more you know, the quicker you are. It's like, oh, it's just this piece of equipment, or there's this tiny sensor that we need to adjust. So I love teaching the customers and also being on farm with them as well.
Yeah, it sounds like you get to work with a lot of people, you get to travel.
Yep.
What is a skill that you think is really important for you to have? And I will say, I love that you shared with us that, college was not what you needed to do, nor what you were
Yes.
interested in doing, and it worked out really well for you. And I think that's very realistic. So just, what was a skill that you thought was really important that you needed in high school that has propelled you into the job you have now?
I'd say just the willingness and openness to learn and just adapt new concepts. Sometimes, especially if we have, when I first started working, I really didn't understand a lot about the milking process, but just being open to the idea, okay, well, this, X does Y, and then so on and so forth. You don't need to understand the whole system, but you start with the simple basics, and just if you have an openness and a willing to learn, I think it gets easier and easier. And just being enthusiastic about learning new processes and learning about new sensors. For me, it's like when we have a new sensor, it's like, I'm not the engineer behind like, hey, I developed this sensor. I'm more like, oh, how does it work in the real world? Oh, how do we wire it in, and how do we service and maintenance it? And if you have that kind of that basic mechanical ability, if you like to tinker, if you're building computers, or if you're working on cars, if you're doing any of that stuff, I think it's a little bit of a step up to get you into the service technician role.
Yeah. No, that's a great point, and I'm sure a lot of people can resonate with that. Something like, man, I like working with, small engines, or I like you said,
Right.
like the tinker. So this is an opportunity. So now you work specifically for Galaxy, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So are there other companies like just trying to get the kind of an idea
Yeah.
of, is this very unique to Galaxy, or are there other companies out there? Is this a common job opportunity for people?
So that the equipment, this equipment is unique to Galaxy, but there are also a handful of other basically like Galaxy dealers and distributors that have equipment that is not exactly the same but does the same job. So we were just out at World Dairy Expo, and we get to interact with all the other companies. So like if there's anyone that has a farm out there, you'll know like the big guys, like there's DeLaval, Bullmatic, Laeli, there's a couple other equipment. So they all the big guys have robotic systems, and they also have conventional systems. So you can get into the technician role, not just into robotics. You can start on conventional side, and you can move into robotics. But they're in the dairy service world, there's a lot of demand for technicians.
Yeah, absolutely. No, very cool. Yeah, I've just noticed we've been talking specifically on the milking robot in front of us right now. Is that the only thing that you do specialize in robot technician for the milker, or do you also get to do that we had met with Suzanne, and she had talked about other pieces of robotic systems like the calf feeder and the bedder. Like, do you get to work with those at all, or do you kind of specialize in the milking robot?
I have a little bit more of a specialty in the robotic milking since we've been working with them for so long, but I also do the calf feeders as well. If you were a technician that worked for Galaxy, you will be able to work on every piece of equipment that we sell. We just have some guys that have a little bit of more of a specialty in certain areas, but I'll work on the robotic milking equipment. I'll work on calf feeders. We have feed pushing robots, bedding robots. But I'll get to work on basically the array of all the equipment we sell.
Yeah. Wow. That's incredible. And I think while we've been chatting, the cow we were looking at earlier finished and is long gone, and we're on to another one, right?
Yes. Yep,
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
That's
It'll just keep happening in the background.
Wow. That's incredible that they just kind of keep coming in. Now, remind us, I think Suzanne had talked to us, like some farms have 60 cows and one robot. Is that a typical 60 cows to one robot? Like how many robots do you need for this size farm to be able to maintain and keep up with the cows?
So we have 60 cows per robot is a pretty good guideline. There's
Okay.
some things we need to look at, and it's mostly production. So if you have very high producing cows, you'll probably be right around the 60 mark. If you get a little bit less and less and less, you could stretch it just a little bit, but we stay in that 60 to 65 cow mark per robot. So as the farm as you grow in cows, you'll need extra systems. So here, I believe what we have our older system in the middle of the barn. You might be able to get to see the outside of that. That one has 2 boxes, and that milks 120. This one has 1 box, is basically where the cow stands. That's what we call a box.
Okay.
That milks about 60. So we can handle 180 cows roughly on the farm.
Okay. Very cool. Now, and actually, you bring up a good point. We're standing in a room right now, I guess, right? And the robot is kind of part of that room. But the cows
Yep.
are obviously walking in. So where are
Yeah.
the cows? Like, where are they coming from?
We
Like,
could probably, if we pop out here, this is the backside of the barn.
oh, wow. So we are literally connected right to the barn with this robot. Very cool.
Yep. So as you can see, that's the older system over there.
Okay.
And as like we're just standing here, we didn't touch her, and she just walks right in.
Wow.
So they're just kind of standing, waiting for the next opportunity.
So they're in the waiting room right now, getting ready
Yep.
to
Yep.
come on in. Interesting. So
Yep.
when they come, so actually, so we talked about, they're in the waiting room. They come in, they get their treat. They're in there for a few minutes to get milked, and then they go back out. Do they get access to go right back to where they were laying, or is there like a
Yeah.
spot they need to go to before, or anything like that?
So all the cows will exit right to it's the feed alley. So hopefully you'll get to see that when you're on if you didn't get to see it on the other side, but all the cows will get diverted this way in the barn is to the feed alley. So as soon as they're done with the robot, they have access to water, feed, and then all the beds. They're right there.
Wow. Interesting. Now, so the robot is collecting a lot of data, and you mentioned specifically milk flow and probably the milk production. Can the robot help you or the farmer know if a cow is sick or anything like that? Does that help diagnosis or anything, or how does that how does the robot help the farmer in other ways on the farm?
Yeah. So this specific system, we have what we call connectivity sensor. So what that does, and I'll try not to get too techy, but it'll measure the milk, and it'll tell the farmer if there's a potential for an infection. And the sensors are very very specific. So a lot of the times would be able to catch an infection in a quarter before a farmer would ever see it if they were in a parlor or if they were hand milking cows. There's also on this unit, there's also testing for components. So like protein and butter fat. We also test that every single cow every time.
Wow.
And inside there's a receiver. So when she's being milked, there's a jar inside the system where all of the milk gets collected. There's also an optic, so it'll look for any discoloration in the milk. Let's just say, maybe she got stepped on and there's blood. That will see that in the milk, and we can divert the milk from the main tank into a separation bucket. So there's buckets out there that if a cow's sick and we want to separate her, or if she's getting medicine and we want to separate her, we set that up and it'll automatically put her milk into a different area and clean the system in between those cows.
Wow, so it's really like very detailed and looking for specific things. And actually, you set me up great for a question that we had that came in about cleaning. We had someone come in that asked, is the milking machine cleaned each time before each cow, or how often is it set up to do? Just maybe talk about that cleaning process a little bit more.
So down here from the inflations to about here, in between every single cow, and if her milk is normal, if there's no high conductivity, and if there's no discoloration in the milk, the units are cleaned and the hoses are cleaned in between each cow. Okay. Now from there back to the system and the pipeline, that's cleaned automatically 3 times a day. And if you have guys on a dairy farm or ladies on a dairy farm, would be they call it CIP, so a clean in place system. So it's all automatic. We set the times that it goes through a main cleaning, as we call it, and the system will it'll allow the cow to finish milking. It'll pump over any milk. It'll blow the line out to make sure there's no milk left. and then it'll start the automatic cleaning process.
Wow. Okay. So it cleans the part that's touching the cow, the really close part, every time between cows. And
Yep.
then just to recap, you had
Every
said
single
it's,
time.
and then a deep clean essentially of the whole thing is 3 times a day
Yep.
that it's cleaning everything.
Yep.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And you
And
can
that
set
was
it,
a
you
great
can set it
question.
up to as many. Yeah.
Awesome. Oh, okay. That makes sense. And then also I think you mentioned that if there is a different type of cow that's coming through that, like you mentioned, is getting medication or something, does that still just clean the arm, or does that kind of reset it to do a deep clean then?
Yeah, that'll do a deep clean in just the system here.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Very cool. Very cool. This has been very informational, and we have absolutely loved this, and we've had good questions come in. So thank you all for participating and asking some good questions. I wanted to give you the chance, Jim, and just share, is there anything else that you'd want to, we've got a bunch of high school students on board with us today, and plenty of people will be watching this on record. So any advice you want to share from your personal journey to getting here, and maybe just wrap us up here a little bit?
Yeah, I'd say, well, for me, like you touched on, I didn't go to college, so I'd say if you have a good work ethic and you're on the fence, and I think if you have a decent set of mechanical skills and the willingness to learn, there's a lot of companies out there that will hire you right out of high school, and the great part about doing that is they'll actually train you the way that they would like to train you. So there's systems and processes that we use, and every company is different. So don't be afraid to just jump right in and get on board and get out there and learn from, you basically would come on board, and we have new technicians and they learn with me, and I've been working with the equipment since 2012. So I have a lot of knowledge that I get to pass on to my peers, and then so on and so forth. So for me, if you just want to get out there and go after it, do it. And there is absolutely there's no bad choice to also go into college and maybe getting an engineering degree or an electromechanical degree. That's also great. So there's tons of choices for young technicians out there. If you want to be a technician, if you want to be an engineer, and there's a lot of opportunity each way. I just think you just have to have that willingness to jump in and kind of be a little bit of fearless and learn something new.
Yeah, I love that. And I actually have one other question. Right now you're a robot technician and you seem to really love your job. And I'll be honest, it does sound pretty awesome that you get to travel so much and work with so many cool people. But I do wonder, is there a goal in mind that you have that maybe I'd really love to learn this yet, or I'd love to try this job? Is there somewhere that you're kind of hoping this leads you to, or are you thinking that you really like being a robot technician and probably sticking it out here?
I definitely, for me, I did get to leave for a little bit for being a robotic technician. I actually came back to doing it. But for my career goal, I would love to, because I have the basis of the technology side and maintenance, I would love for Galaxy to be able to grow where I could also help develop some new equipment with them. And we all have small parts in the development process, but as every step of the way, I learn more and more and more, and I actually get into a little bit more of the programming side. So I'm hoping one day that we can all work together to develop more products. And I stay in that technical role, but I get to move a little bit more into the kind of development side of things.
Yeah, that sounds like a really cool opportunity too. But that development side, you need that experience on the ground first to know how it's all working. So it sounds like it's working really well for you in this role. And we wish you the best of luck to maybe someday get in that development. And maybe we'll have a really cool robot come up just because of you and your experience. Awesome. So it'd be really cool. Thank you so much, Jim. We've loved spending our time with you today. This has been really beneficial and really cool getting to watch that robot behind you and watch it all happen. So thank you so much.